Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. This is WallBuilders Live. We're taking on the hot topics of the day from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective. You can learn more at wallbuilderslive.com. That's our radio site where you can get a list of all the stations across the country where the program can be heard, as well as make that one-time or monthly contribution. When you contribute to WallBuilders Live, you're helping us to add stations, reach more people, just do more to save America's constitutional republic. So when you're contributing to our program, you're literally investing in freedom. Thank you to all of you across the country who do that on a regular basis. If you want to do a one-time, last-minute, end-of-year contribution, we would greatly appreciate it, and it would help us to reach even more people in 2022. And when I say reach people, that means educate them, empower them, get them prepared to do their part in the communities. It also means all the work that we do training pastors and legislators and young people. There's so much going on here at WallBuilders, and you can be a part of it by contributing today at wallbuilderslive.com. My name is Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach. Normally here with David Barton. He's America's premier historian and our founder at WallBuilders, and also Tim Barton, national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders. But today, we're actually going to take you out to the ProFamily Legislators Conference. We're going to give you more of those incredible talks. These are folks that are the best of the best on the front lines of this culture war in America, this fight over whether or not we're going to just march all the way down the road to socialism and communism, or we're going to come back to the timeless principles of liberty that made America the greatest, most powerful, most benevolent nation in the history of the world. Will we come back to that secret sauce? Well, these folks that teach at this legislators conference, that speak and share with these legislators, they want to share their message with you. And we want their message to get into your hands and for you to share it with the people in your community, because you're hearing from people like Congressman Mike Johnson, from June Hunt, Kelly Shakelford, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, obviously David and Tim Barton, former Congressman Bob McEwen. I mean, these are people that really understand what's at stake and what needs to be done to save our nation. And so we love sharing their presentations from the Legislators Conference. The conference, if you're not familiar with this, it's an opportunity where state reps and state senators come together from across the nation. They exchange ideas. They hear from these speakers. They have great fellowship. We have incredible worship services. We hear from Pastor Tim Brooks every year, just phenomenal messages there as well. And so anyway, we know it's great for these legislators, but we also think it's great for our listeners, and we want you to be able to enjoy these messages as well. So for the next couple of days, we're going to be hearing from Kelly Shakelford. He is, you talk about on the front lines. I mean, this guy argues before the Supreme Court on almost a regular basis. His organization, First Liberty, is doing an incredible job at, first of all, defeating the encroachment on our religious liberty. They have won case after case across the country, defending everyone from the coaches that can't pray to the crosses that get taken down. I mean, you name it, just all kinds of incredible cases where they have had victory after victory after victory. So we love Kelly. We love his perspective on these things. And his presentation at the ProFamily Legislators Conference was so encouraging. I mean, it highlights the fact that the investment in the judiciary, educating people about the judiciary, working hard to get good appointments during the Trump administration, working hard to prevent the packing of the court by Joe Biden. I mean, all of these things that First Liberty has been doing, it's paying off. We've got a lot of great victories happening at the court level. So you're going to enjoy this presentation. It's going to take us 3 days to do this. So today, tomorrow, and the next day, you'll be hearing from Kelly Shakelford at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Let's jump in right now.
I want to give you sort of a feel for what's going on in the battle for religious liberty across the country. So I'm going to start out with something that's going to surprise you. When everybody's talking about how dark it is, and it really is, I mean, we've just been blown away by God's favor. 4 wins at the Supreme Court in the last 4 years. We're about to argue another case in 4 weeks that I think is going to be a victory. That'll be 5 in 4.5 years. Like 16 wins in the last 4 months, which is like for us a record. Never had this kind of success. Just really good. But let me step back, go over the basics. I feel like that we can win if we'll just show up. It's a target-rich environment right now for what we're doing. But let me step back and start with the basics, because there's some people who might not know what we do or how we do it. First Liberty is the largest legal organization in the country that all we do is religious freedom. So if you're a Navy SEAL and you've spent, years, in fact, maybe you got PTSD and you've suffered for your country and you're planning to continue to be one of the best warriors in the world, and then the military comes and says, we noticed that you asked for your right under the law for a religious exemption from the vaccine, so we're going to court-martial you now. We're going to tell you have to pay for all your training, which is $2 million. We're going to dock your pay. We're going to take your trident away. And we're going to tell your family, we're going to start abusing your family, even though we don't have any authority over your family. What do you do if you're a 25-year-old kid or something? I mean, you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to pull out of the bank and hire a great legal team. So we come in, we bring the best litigators in the country who all donate their time, so that when we win the case, and we plan to win the case on behalf of these Navy SEALs, we won't just win for them, but we'll set a precedent that will protect everybody in the military. So that's kind of an example of how we do, why we do what we do. Now, why is this important? Pretty much everybody in here probably is a person of faith. But I find, if you're not a person of faith, I can understand why you say, I don't know, religious freedom. Religious freedom, if you lose religious freedom, you'll lose all your freedom. That's right. We have people that come to us that support us every week that aren't people of faith at all. They're from like Hungary or Czechoslovakia, or they saw it happen. They took down their religious symbols, and a month later, they all lost their political freedoms. And it's because the one thing that totalitarianism will never allow are citizens who hold an allegiance to one higher than the government. So whenever that type of an oppressive power comes in, the first flashpoint is always going to be religious freedom. And if you lose there, you'll lose everything. And what I find, though, is most believers don't understand the importance of religious freedom. They think, yeah, I'm for it because I want to be able to live out my faith. Very small view of religious freedom. If you lose religious freedom, incredible evil comes to your country. We're starting to see this now, right? Marxism, as it starts to seep in. What does Marxism have to do? The first thing it has to do, look at history. What happens when Marxism comes into the Soviet Union? You kill all the priests, okay? You wipe out all the church, because this is a competing ideology. And there's a great book out, Live Not by Lies. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest you read it. It's only 215 pages. But it interviews people from like the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, people that went through communism. To a person, every one of these people say they're terrified at what they're seeing in the United States right now. And the question you naturally ask is, what do you do? How do you overcome this? And the answer is live not by lies. It's Alexander Solzhenitsyn's last essay before he was banned from Russia. In it, he says that the one thing that all totalitarianisms, all the systems they're all the same. They all exist on lies, and everybody has to go along with the lies. But if enough people, not a majority, just enough people stand and speak the truth, even if they suffer, the systems collapse. And he tells the story in each of these countries of, guess who these brave people are who tend to want to stand up, speak the truth, even though they're going to suffer. They tend to be people of faith. This is why religious freedom is so dangerous to, these countries. And so I really think that's the time we're in right now. That this is a time where we all know, that Americans know a lot of the stuff that's being said is just nonsense, right? I don't know, is there a difference between a man and a woman? I think everybody knows that. But the question is, who will say it? Who will stand up? And so that's sort of the time we're in right now. We're in this battle for our country. And so asking this is being at the center of whether your country is going to collapse or whether you're going to have all your freedoms taken away. How are we doing on religious freedom? I probably don't have to convince you, we're in a war right now over religious freedom. I was just at the table talking about this. 11 years ago, we had 48 cases. Last year, we had 321. I think this year we're going to have over 700. So obviously the attacks are increasing pretty dramatic. And I don't have to go very far. Let's start with, I think I've got a picture. Let's start with COVID. We were struggling with going into COVID. And by the way, interesting what I just talked about. What happened when all of a sudden mayors and governors got power that they had never had? What was the first flashpoint? What issue? Religious freedom, right? To shut down churches and synagogues.
All right, friends, I got to interrupt just for a second here for a quick break, and then we'll be right back. You've been listening to Kelly Shakelford teaching at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live. Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? We're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com.
This is Tim Barton from WallBuilders with another moment from American history. America is a special and unique nation. The average length for a constitution in other countries is only 17 years, but we've had ours for over 2 centuries. And our 4% of the world's population produces 24% of the world's gross domestic product, and every year we produce more inventions and technology than the other 96% of the world combined. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville of France came to America, traveled the country, and in his famous book, Democracy in America, reported, "The position of the Americans is therefore quite exceptional, and it may be believed that no democratic people will ever be placed in a similar one." This is the origin of the phrase American exceptionalism, and affirms that America is unique because of the distinctive ideas on which we have been based, including inalienable rights, individualism, limited government, and the importance of religion and morality. For more information about American exceptionalism, go to wallbuilders.com.
We're back here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. We're going to jump right back in with Kelly Shakelford speaking at the ProFamily Legislators Conference about the courts, the religious liberty, the victories that have already happened in the last couple of years thanks to the appointments by President Donald Trump, and the victories that Kelly thinks we're going to see in the coming years as well. Here's Kelly Shakelford at the ProFamily Legislators Conference.
We knew how hard it was going to be to win one of these cases. No precedent in the history of our country on this. If you're a federal judge and somebody walks in your court and says, "Hey, I want you to disagree with the governor here who says he's trying to save 10 million people's lives, and I want you to open our church for an hour on Sunday." That's a tough thing to win, right? So we prayed and we waited and we prayed. We had hundreds of churches, synagogues asking for help. And finally, we felt like this is the case. We got a call about 1.5 years ago. This is On Fire Christian Church. They just wanted to have Easter and be together and be safe. And so they came up with the idea of, we'll drive in our automobiles to the church parking lot. The minister will speak over a radio frequency. And I'm no CDC expert. Of course, I don't know that the CDC is much of an expert either these days. But I'm pretty sure you don't pass the coronavirus through an automobile. City of Louisville said that they would criminally prosecute any cars that went into the church parking lot. And then the governor said that they're going to send police officers on Easter Sunday to church parking lots They're going to write down license plates, and they would visit their homes, and any of those people would be quarantined by the police for 14 days. We said, okay, we're now in China, right? This is the case. So we filed for a federal injunction on Good Friday, and we got a great judge by the name of Justin Walker, and he started off the decision saying, you ought to read this, it's real easy to understand, and you can find it online just on Fire Christian Church. He starts off by saying, you know, I'm writing something I never thought I would even read in a dystopian novel. An American city is criminalizing an Easter gathering. He said, this is outrageous, it's irrational, it's unconstitutional, and this will never happen as long as I'm a federal judge in the United States of America. And so if you'll remember what we were seeing at this time, the visuals were like a father throwing a baseball with his son being handcuffed because he was in a park. A guy coming off the beach with a surfboard all by himself, nobody else on the beach, being arrested, right? And everybody was wondering, is the Constitution suspended? And we called this the second shot heard around the world. This was the Second American Revolution that said, yes, the Constitution is in place. This country was built on religious freedom, and we don't put the Constitution aside for anything. But our goal wasn't to get churches back into church cars into their parking lots. Our goal was to get people in church. So the next case was Tabernacle Baptist Church. Really in a rural area, few COVID cases in that county, big facility, plenty of room for social distancing. But you know the facts at the time, right? You could go to the gambling parlor, you could go to Home Depot, you could go to a liquor store, but the one place you couldn't go was to the church for an hour on Sunday. It's just totally irrational, right? So we filed a lawsuit. Well, not only did we win an injunction for the church, but by the time we were finished, Daniel Cameron, the African-American Attorney General of Kentucky, joined us in suing his own governor on behalf of all the other churches in the state. And we ended up with a statewide injunction opening every house of worship in the state to be able to meet in a safe way if they so wanted to. So, but the problem is none of these, and we won every COVID case we had. Washington, D.C. against Mayor Bowser, that was one of my favorite. But the problem is none of these made the Supreme Court, so there's no precedent that really binds the country. So we're still in a battle over whether the government controls religious freedom in this country, which is really sad. But the cases weren't just, COVID cases. We had, I think the Brown case, I think that's one of the next ones I have. This one is a juror dismissed by a federal, after a federal jury. This is set through 8 weeks of trial. In the jury deliberations, said that they would rely upon the Holy Spirit in their determinations, and they were thrown off the jury by the judge because he said you can't rely upon outside sources. So you can say the oath, so help me God, but if you believe it, you're now banned from juries. We ended up having to go all the way. The Federal Court of Appeals said, yeah, we agree with the judge. So we ended up having to go en banc, meaning it's very special, all 11 judges at the Federal Court of Appeals in the 11th Circuit, because this was going to ban basically any Christian who believes in the Holy Spirit from serving on a federal jury across the country. Now, we won. And this is now clear. You can never do that across the country. But it's just unbelievable what we're having to fight. Churches being attacked. I think Canaan Baptist, this is a small church. City comes and says, we're going to take your property. And they said, we're going to build our sanctuary on that property. And they said, well, sorry, but we want to put our fire station there. Well, there's a fire station across the street. Yeah, but we like your property better. Well, we brought in a bunch of top litigators, and they decided maybe they didn't want the church's land by the time we were done. But the pastor called us not too long ago and said, hey, we just wanted you to know we started our sanctuary, and we're going to name it after the lead attorney who donated his time on our case. So it ends well. But, this is just an example of, tons of cases I could tell you about of churches just under attack. Synagogues.
Our friends got to take another quick break here with Kelly Shakelford from the ProFamily Legislators Conference speaking there to these legislators. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
Hey guys, we want to let you know about a new resource we have at WallBuilders called The American Story. For so many years, people have asked us to do a history book to help tell more of the story that's just not known or not told today, and we would say very providentially in the midst of all of the new attacks coming out against America, whether it be from things like the 1619 Project that say America is evil and everything in America was built off slavery, which is certainly not true, or things like even the Black Lives Matter movement, the organization itself, not the statement Black Lives Matter, but the organization that says we're against everything that America was built on, and this is part of the Marxist ideology. There's so many things attacking America. Well, is America worth defending? Well, what is a true story of America? We actually have written and told that story, starting with Christopher Columbus, going roughly through Abraham Lincoln. We tell the story of America not as the story of a perfect nation or a perfect people, but the story of how God used these imperfect people and did great things through this nation. It's a story you want to check out. WallBuilders.com, The American Story.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Let's jump right back in with Kelly Shakelford from the ProFamily Legislators Conference.
We have synagogue cases in Los Angeles or Irvine, and we had it in Houston. We just won. We got a number in New York where they're just literally trying to keep them from being able to meet. So, I mean, these are things we usually didn't have to fight. In schools, okay, there's just tons of cases in schools. Probably the most well-known is our one with Elizabeth Turner, valedictorian. You know, what is a valedictory address? It means personal farewell, okay? People talk about all kinds of stuff, politics, left-wing crazy stuff, everything. But her speech, she was told she couldn't give because it was, quote, inappropriate. Why? Because she was going to mention God or Jesus. Well, good for Elizabeth. She's not only smart, she learned well. She said, the government can't tell me I can speak, but I can't talk about Jesus. So by the time we were done with the case, instead of her giving her speech to, her audience, instead it was carried by Fox News, and it reached a lot more people in the country. And they saw that. We got a call from another young lady who said, I'm the valedictorian. They're doing this to me in my school district too. So we ended up having to do 2 of these cases. But this is the kind of, just kids, they're supposed to be teaching them to come out and be great citizens, and instead they're trying to teach them government censorship. So the kids know more than they do in these cases. So it's crazy what they're having to go through. Attacks by woke corporations, like this is becoming a real normal thing where citizens are getting abused all over the country. And an example of this is the case we just filed for Alaska Airlines. This is a massively woke corporation with lots of issues. Really sad, because only 8 or 9 years ago, they had scripture verses on their napkins. And anyway, we've been waiting for the right case to really send a message to these woke corporations to maybe get them to think twice about what they've been doing. And I think this might be the case.
Lacey Smith loved being a flight attendant. The job was a perfect fit for her personality and her faith.
There's, of course, adventure that's a part of it. There were so many places that I got to explore that I wouldn't have otherwise. And in the same way, that's the same thing with the people, right? You just have so many different people. And so just kind of being there and serving in a way, when you think of, Jesus and the servant leadership, just being able to serve in a way that just met their need where they were at.
She worked for Alaska Airlines, a woke corporation, so she was not surprised when a notice appeared on an employee-only page.
So it just caught my eye because they had just posted it, and the title was Alaska Supports the Equality Act.
H.R. 5, the Equality Act.
That is a deceptively named bill in Congress. The large print may trumpet equality, but the fine print destroys important legal protections for people of faith.
What we're seeing now in the name of equality for people is equality for some, right? That it's believe what I want you to believe or you're canceled.
So she posted a comment.
As a company, do you think it's possible to regulate morality?
And that's all she wrote, but there was a great deal of thought behind it.
In terms of regulating morality, laws are all about regulation. That's what they do. We're regulating behavior. Morality, when you break it down, is just what is right? What is wrong? The idea behind that. As a Christian, my morality comes from God.
She says first the airline wrote a response to her comment. Then they deleted it. Then they paused her work schedule. Then they called her in for a meeting. Then they fired her.
They said that by my asking the question, I was such a bad person that it merited firing me from my job. And I think that that's the hard part about it, that, like, what do people get fired for, right? Like, they get fired for being, not caring, incompetent, lazy, whatever. And mine had nothing to do with performance. It had everything to do with my character. And that's what they fired me for, that they said my character was so bad that I shouldn't work there anymore.
And the ultimate irony, what Alaska Airlines did perfectly illustrates why Lacey had questions about the so-called Equality Act.
I have the freedom to be who I want, unless apparently I work for Alaska Airlines. And then all of a sudden, I no longer have the freedom to be who I am, because in order to keep my job, I now have to agree with everything that the company is saying and doing.
All right, folks, we are out of time for today. We will jump right back in with Kelly tomorrow. That's Kelly Shakelford from First Liberty. You can visit their website at firstliberty.org. Stay with us tomorrow because you're going to enjoy the rest of this presentation. Always good to have Kelly Shakelford as a guest on the program, but this live presentation from the Legislators Conference is something you just don't want to miss the rest of. So we've got 2 more days of it. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. Thanks for listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting.